Next curve.
Hey everyone, this is Leonard Lee, Executive Analyst at Next Curve, and welcome to the Rethink Podcast. I have a really special guest. His name is Peter Linder, and he is like, are you global yet, or are you still a fraction of the world thought leader?
Fraction of the world, North America, Latin America.
Yeah, of Ericsson. And he's a very, very special guest. We're going to be talking about thought leadership. Yeah, the thing that everyone is today, a thought leader, but we're going to break it down. And we're going to help you understand that thought leadership is actually kind of hard. And it requires something which Peter has a lot of, which is experience and perspective in helping to shape thinking and advancing mindset to get to the next thing. So this is going to be a really, really interesting topic. And like, share, comment on this podcast. I think this is going to be a very special one. It's one about a topic that Peter and I talk a lot about, actually, and especially as it pertains to the telco industry and mobile wireless. Because, there's a lot of people who opine about it. They talk about what we need to do to get the industry out of its rut or whatever it is, however they characterize things. But remember, anything that this guy says, those are his own thoughts, his opinions, not that of Ericsson, right? Because this is a buddy-buddy conversation, right, Peter? Right?
No, we're going to try to get deep into it and see what's really under the hood, what it looks like. So absolutely.
Yeah. And this is entirely a discussion that we're having to help our audience understand thought leadership and then maybe advance their thinking about what that really is. And, all his thoughts are his own and don't reflect that of Next Curve and Leonard Lee. But why don't we get started? Now, I kind of introduced you, Peter. So why don't you formally introduce yourself and your background?
Thank you very much. So what I do is I'm head of thought leadership for Ericsson in Americas. And that is the world that is both North and South America, Latin America today. And I've been into this position roughly 4 years since I started for North America, and more recently also expanding to Latin America as that is the scope of our organization. And I've been with Ericsson for quite some time. I joined in 1991. So I've been seeing a thing or two on the telecom world. Started very much in broadband for the first 15 years, and then mobile broadband the last 15 plus years, you can say. So I think I'm a networking guy, and also try to be more on the side of connecting dots than writing all the dots. Collecting dots and connecting dots, I think, is the best way to describe it.
Given that thought leadership is in your title, you have to know something about it. But we had a conversation about this, actually. I forgot when, but we had a conversation about it, and all I remember, it was a good one. But recently you sent me this outline that I thought was really, really well done. It really nicely frames what thought leadership is and should be and how it should be understood.
Now, really quickly, I think it's very easy to get it wrong because you look at the two words, you think about thought and leadership, and it can easily get to gravitate towards, okay, it's about me, my thoughts, and my leadership and our leadership. I think that in the really big value of thought leadership, and when you take it to the next level and say, hey, this is not about my thoughts and my leadership, it's about what I try to do to make a difference for my customers. So when you're putting the customer in focus and actually saying, what is the difference you can make for the customer, and trying to be the one making the biggest difference for your customer. And I think a lot of it boils down to three things. It boils down to the points of view you're presenting. Everybody gets that, right? But you also need to back it up by very strong evidences and facts. And ideally, you should help your customer or the person you're interacting with and actually you should help them see the best actions that you can suggest for them so they can take action. So it's not only something that you soak in, but you say, oh, holy cow, if I know this right now, then I need to take actions. And what are those actions I can take? And it's also a profession that's very different if you're working with thought leadership in a large consultancy organization, where you have a big research team and a big editorial team backing you up, or whether you work in a large organization that I do, where you're more kind of a spider in the web. So it's not that I'm sitting doing all the thinking myself. It's also pulling in from various different professions from across the company. So thought leadership is very different if you're in a consultancy organization or if you're working in a large corporation.
In terms of purpose, the way I look at thought leadership is it's a trigger to reshape, I think, or even adjust or even create new discussions, right? So if there's a prevailing point of view and a different prevailing discourse that's happening or perception of something, that you're trying to influence folks to think about it in a different way. And ideally, it's a way that is based on gap filling, right? One of the things that you mentioned, I know, in the past is this notion of connecting dots. And oftentimes, especially given how some of the topics that we're dealing with today are so complex, multi-dimensional, multi-domain, it's very difficult to connect the dots, right? And sometimes there's certain things that are actually evident that, thought leadership can help clarify and amplify. And that realization is actually that thing that is not only fundamental in moving things forward, but then it also is the thing that audiences and stakeholders need to be cognizant of. And hopefully at some point, once you get, them to be aware, get them to espouse and get them then to act on that new understanding, right? And I think that's been the challenge I've seen the telco industry have, right? We have a lot of proponents and antagonists even within the industry that, posit one way or the other or how the the industry should go. Should you be a tech go, or should just manage a dumb pipe forever? Or what is a dumb pipe and blah, blah, blah. But then you get caught into these circular arguments that don't, in the end of the day, take the industry and, out of whatever sort of, pit of discourse that's stunting thinking, progressive thinking. You know what I'm saying?
You're onto something very important here, because it's often with thought leadership, you're trying to help people get a new frame.
Yeah.
So framing a problem in a different way. Giving you one example, 4 years ago, we talked about the digital divide was a really big thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought that you can listen to the name that said digital divide. You have to dig yourself out of the problem. You have to dig fiber everywhere, and then you get out of the digital divide. An important part of reframing of that question was like saying, hey, if we look at what it is right now, how long will it take to dig fiber to everybody in the United States? And 4 years ago, we were on path to have that job completed 2066, because that's right how fast you can dig and get fiber everywhere. And the other key component was like, hey, a lot of people like my mom, for example, it's way easier to get them to buy into the idea that they need a smartphone, so that their digital interface is 5 inches rather than 55 inches. Those two things, talking about the digital divide as being both fixed and mobile, and talk about, hey, you don't have to dig yourself out of it. You can connect a lot of people wirelessly. Those kind of things is a good example of a reframing of something that everybody thought was a very clear problem. And also the fact that when you have to talk to different audiences, it's very different to talk to a service provider or an enterprise or an ecosystem partner or a regulator and policymaker.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you have to figure out for a particular thought leadership idea, how do I find like kind of the common map in the middle that everybody can see, and then the unique aspects that are unique for different audiences, and that just keeping it simple so everybody can agree on the basics, and then branching out. That's a lot of where I think the framing and the point of view creation lies.
Yeah. And it is a creative exercise, as you and I know and have experienced.
Yes.
Because it's not about regurgitating existing thought. It's about advancing a progression in thought, right? And, I do actually have a lot of folks who ask me about thought leadership and how is it different from influence, right? Because now we have all these influencers and we have these folks who are self-proclaimed thought leaders, or even, anyone who has a ton of people following, like they're considered influencers. But what is it that makes a thought leader a thought leader? And it's really that novel thinking that actually progresses discourse and mindset to the next level, right? It's movement. It's not emphasizing or educating people on existing thought, right? Which has value, right? But that's why the thought leadership role I perceive you have done is different from being an educator. Education is just part of the exercise. The next thing is, how do you get people to understand the next thought, right? Mm-hmm. That's critical in advancing something, not necessarily making people aware and educating on existing frameworks and paradigms of thinking.
No, but I think you can describe it a little bit, seeing that the difference here by showing a little bit how do I spend my time, and how do I think that's different from an influencing role. I spend my time roughly 1/3 of researching and understanding and trying to see what is really going on. 1/3 is perhaps spent on creating content, not so much slides, but more talk tracks. I live and die with talk tracks.
Yeah.
I try to frame everything I talk about in 3-minute blocks, like 3 points, 3-minute blocks. I can remember it. You can catch it. You and the audience can catch it. And then the last third is like how to convey it, like speaking on a stage or being on a podcast like this. And I think what differentiates a thought leader is that you have to spend the hard work in the first 2 buckets. Yeah. Because for me, it's very much, I need to do the research and the understanding, that's no doubt. But also for me, I write every single piece that I talk about down myself. Why? Because that is typically where the things goes into my brain. And for most of the thought leadership pieces like that I write, like blog posts and so on, I write them on a phone. So I write them, type them letter by letter, because that prevents me from brain typing. Yeah. So it doesn't go very quick for me. I'm seeing this on 2 fingers on the keyboard and 1 finger on the phone. But it helped me. Yeah. I tried to get there. Yeah. I haven't got there yet.
You have it on the table and you're pecking it with 2 fingers? That's not the
way. No, so picking with, but the point is here that then I write. I be careful because it takes forever to write a lot of stuff. So I pay more attention to every single letter I take in, because I'm a little bit sloppy too. So that I think these things, it's where it differentiates you for and the best way for a thought leader to get something really good done is you commit to an important speaking stage and you do it well in advance, and then you commit to, okay, I'm going to present some novel thinking at this particular event. Yeah. And then you fit it in the frame that you've been given. So, for example, this spring I was tasked to speak at CTA in Washington at their annual 5G event. 10 minutes, like heavy lit scene. You're stepping up there, and you're doing 10 minutes. You don't do that. Yeah. And so, just this getting your story into a 9-minute and 46-second frame, and knowing that you consistently can deliver that, that's where I think that is when you see thought leadership coming out, and a lot of people think that 10 minutes it's easy. 10 minutes are perhaps the hardest formats that are out there. And if you do the 2 first steps really good, then you deliver it on 10 minutes. So that's a good way how to advance it, how to advance your thinking. Because if you push yourself to those kind of things, and always going to the next level, it's I think that the tricky part.
Yeah, and it's also a big exercise internally within organizations as well, right? So if we were to take a look at the role of thought leadership and how it institutes sort of adaptive thinking within organizations, that's another function, I think, of thought leadership. And here's the thing. I make a distinction between thought leadership and visioning stuff, right? That kind of stuff. Yeah. You can read an article in Popular Mechanics about like UFO, friggin' warp drives or something like that being the future of aircraft propulsion systems, right? But that's not thought leadership. A lot of people can look at, research level technology and imagine all kinds of stuff. Thought leadership is a little bit more near term. It has immediate value, the potential of immediate value in its application if you are able to affect that mindset shift, right? It's not fantasy stuff, right? That's not thought leadership. It has purpose. It doesn't function to help people be aware of science fiction or just science. It's what are we doing to shape the perception of, let's say, a particular problem or the state of an industry, state of a product, state of a market, so that we can advance the mutual benefit in moving to the next level, right? Whether it's, let's say, 4G to 5G. There's so much debate about, what's the value of 5G advance, or what's the value of 6G? Yet there's so little, quite honestly, thought leadership. A lot of it is just a bunch of people arguing with each other. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, but absolutely.
It's not necessarily thought leadership. That's really people expressing legacy thinking and projecting it onto a problem and then having an argument, maybe debate. Thought leadership unravels that.
Exactly. When you're pushing for thought leadership, you're trying to change people's mind. And it's never a good thing when you present thought leadership and someone says, yeah, I agreed with you with everything you said. Because then they knew it before, and they most likely taken all the decisions they could based on that information in the past as well. So then you didn't move them really, you didn't really move their thinking an inch. But if you, on the other hand, if you say, hey, I'm going to push the envelope a little bit here. I'm going to push an envelope where the fence is for where my company is comfortable with us talking about. And so you have the first internal test, are you pushing it hard enough, is that it has to create resistance in your organization. Yeah. That's where they're starting to come the test of your mental resilience in this, because you're getting feedback or say, am I pushing too far, or should I back off a little bit? But not too much, because then you're getting into that when you're watering down, so there's nothing left of the thing that changed people thinking. And the same thing when you're with prestigious clients and stuff like that, when you're challenging their thinking as well. So it's like great thought leadership always create tension. And as a thought leader, this is really, really tough in the later part of the process, because you're pushing things and saying, hey, did I push too far now? And so I'm getting pushed back from there. And you have to trust yourself. Yeah. And you also have to be humble. Listen, but okay, I listen, but I still believe in it. I can defend it. I still have you've done the research, you have the facts that's backing it up. So you still feel confident. But you're so close, you should be close to the edge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is where it starts to get tense. And I can be totally paranoid in the back end of an important thought leadership project, because not only are you scrambling to get everything together, but you also say, hey, are we pushing it hard enough? Are we pushing it not too far? And not backing off when it's a risk of watering it down. So it's very much a mental exercise. So if I've talked about the evidence, the point of view, and the actions, but the mental piece, like when you get to especially in the last quarter or like you see it all is building up the tension. And this is not only putting yourself on stage. It's like hey, does it resonate? Does it? And then before, now it started moving people's mind. Now you start seeing the ideas getting traction, and that's the beauty. But also, to me, it's like the scary part, and it wears me out every time. So a lot of people, no, it absolutely does, and you're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's about. I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. It's the friction. I mean, that's how you measure whether or not the thought that you're introducing actually fosters constructive debate, right?
Yeah.
Constructive debate. And I mean that directionally. And yeah, there is that anxiety. And I get that all the time as well, because a lot of my research is forward looking. And so it's always a little bit creepy and sometimes there is a sense of trepidation that you have in putting your thought out there. It's not a comfortable thing. And I do talk to many people who ask me, well, how do you do it? And, what are some ways that I can, be more like, do stuff like what you do? I say, well, number one, it's really scary. And you have to get used to it. And you have to build that, muscle, right? And then even in certain instances, build scar tissue, have that resilience that you mentioned, right? But then also the fortitude to be able to get into some of the stuff. It's like performing on stage. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a musician getting up first time if you got anybody's a musician, getting up on stage the first time is immensely scary. Or getting on the microphone first time in karaoke, right? It's almost like the same thing. But thought leadership, it's different. And there's that friction and the invitation, literally an invitation for debate. That's another element. The direction. Are you going in a better direction? Are you suggesting to your audience that what I'm providing is thought augmenting perspective that's going to help, right? And while it might sound really like a selfish effort, the purpose is generous. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that's the nature of thought leadership, at least to me. And as I observe the work that you do and the challenges that you face, not only internally, but just in terms of being able to influence and shift thinking in the industry, it's something that I notice in the work that you do.
Well, I always test and qualify the work I do. It's like, did my contributions allow people to take action, change? And often when we present things, we talk about thought leadership. Oh, you were here, you didn't do anything. Take a big leap. And that is hard in a lot of situations. Yeah. It's like you don't become from, hey, I have some problems here, to be kick-ass fantastic overnight. So I often think when thinking about what are the actions people could take here. Status quo, doing nothing, articulate that clearly. So that is one option. Least effort. What should anyone be able to do when based on listening and hearing to the piece I presented? Second best, which is like, okay, fantastic without all the bells and whistles. And then the best option is perhaps a little bit further out, not something that you rarely hit in one go. Because then you can achieve something really, really interesting. It becomes always, in almost all situations, it becomes a choice between the least effort and second best. That helping people to take that discussion. And then you're a lot closer to something like, hey, my health results wasn't so good. Okay, what about these 10,000 steps a day? Well, that I should be able to do. What about if I do 14,000 steps a day? That helps. I start with 10 and then I can move to 40 and then I can do a triathlon or marathon after that. But finding these kind of ways, so you kind of trying to bring it home. So you're not trying to be just the wisest person in the room or with the best ideas and the best facts that didn't help the person that you had in front of you.
Yeah, no, those are really great points. Although I think one of the things that you want to do as a thought leader is present synthesized thinking. It's typically cross-domain. It's something that might be a perspective that is not conventional, right? Like going back to this notion of friction, the friction is that indicator of potential value. The direction is the probability of actually delivering value through that thought leadership. It is sort of how I view it. So anyway.
No, but I can give you one anecdote, something like this. When you manage to synthesize something that's really down to very simple. When 5G was introduced, we were trying to make everybody understand this difference between low band, mid band, and high band spectrum, which was really, really, really difficult for people to get their arms around. No one's really thought about that. And we took some golf clubs as an example. So use the drivers, that's low band. It reach very, very far and goes forever. And then mid band, we said that is a little bit more like an iron. And then low band is like a short wedge. So we focused on not so much about the speed that's delivering, but the distance and the reach, and saying, hey, it's really hard to get network coverage with just a lot of wedges. Then it takes you forever to get the hole on a par 5. And then I presented this, and there was a number of women that didn't play golf in the audience. And we used the same slides for 4 years. And they say, well, we don't play golf. How should we be thinking? Well, low band, it's like your flat shoes. You can walk in them forever. The mid band, that's your kitten heels that you can walk reasonably comfortable, but not super long. And high band, that's your high heels, that they're the fancy stuff, but doesn't go so long. And all of a sudden, you had people into the dialogue, and I still have people remember that have heard those presentations that come say, well, I didn't understand anything from that conference, but your golf clubs, that has stayed stuck in my mind. So I think this is a part of thought leadership as well. Sometimes it's not like the 45 minutes that you talk or the whole interaction, but if you can get one of those nuggets in people in the head of the person in front of you, a little bit of that tool where you synthesize it into something that is memorable and a kind of a hook that, hey, I need to speak to that golf guy again about the spectrum.
Man, the shoe
exactly. No, the shoe salesperson. Yeah. So those kind of things, never underestimate the power of those kind of tricks in the thought leadership bag, because they're part of thought leadership, because because people don't trust that many people for thought leadership. So that the people that you trust is perhaps the ones that made those memorable impressions, and they got the hook in another hook and another hook, and after a while it looks like the whole fishing.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I guess that's one of the creative aspects of being a thought leader, is taking that thought and distilling it into fun little, palatable or even digestible concepts, right? Or analogies. So I know that you're really good at that. I'm surprised you didn't create a wine related analogy for the different types of 5G. So that's too funny. But hey, I know we can go on forever, but maybe we'll have another follow up. We'll have a follow on discussion. But to our audience, I remember, the stuff that Peter mentioned: develop a clear point of view. Number 1. Number 2, research, backing your point of view. Yes, this is the homework that you need to do. And then number 3, facilitate actions. And finally, the mental resiliency game. Right? Make sure that you have the intestinal fortitude to go out there and have the debates, because there will be debates. I mean, if there's no debate, it's not thought leadership, right? You're not challenging people's prevailing thinking, and that's what a thought leader does. So
and the debates. This is debates that you give you the next step and the next step and the next step. So by taking those debates, you develop and you see, holy cow, I presented this thing, but this is moving the conversation over there and over there. So that when you take the debate, you got your next outputs pretty much lined up.
Yeah. Well, you also learn a lot through those debates as well. That's the fun thing about thought leadership, right? So, but anyway, Peter, hey, thank you. This was really fun. This was really fun. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Always super fun. And humorous. The humorous.
No, and I really appreciate this for having this conversation, because I think sometimes it's not obvious to people what we do behind the scenes,
or what you do.
No, it's not very, very rare that I talk about that. But this is I hope you and the audience also have learned and gotten something out of it, and seeing that. What does it take how do you drive thought leadership in a large organization, and what are the kind of things to focus on?
Exactly.
It took me a while to figure out what those those three things that we talked about here, plus a mental resilience.
Yeah.
It took me to perhaps 2 years in my role until I felt comfortable. This is the core of it.
Yeah. Well, it helps that you know what you're talking about. I think that's foundational, right?
Yeah.
The stakeholders, they need to, number one, respect you at a foundational level. And, and you mentioned how long you've been with Ericsson and how many generations of the technologies and the deployments that you've seen. And I think that's important as well. But hey, thank you so much, my friend. This is a weekend, so we need to go off and do our weekend stuff, right? And
Yes.
so, yeah, and everyone, if you don't know who Peter is, then wow, he's everywhere. He's at Ericsson. So look him up on LinkedIn and you'll find him. And he has some really cool photos. He's very photogenic. And he's also really good with video. He's quite funny, actually. So yeah, reach out to him. He doesn't bite, as you can tell. He's a fabulous personality. And thanks for joining and listening in on this podcast. And we hope you took a lot away from it and you have a better understanding what thought leadership is. And so remember, please subscribe to our podcast. It's going to be featured on our Next Curve YouTube channel, which you're probably watching it on right now, but it's also in the audio version on Buzzsprout. So we're available across all your podcast platforms. So pick your favorite one and take us on your jog and your daily commute. And also subscribe to the Next Curve research portal at www.next-curve.com and on our Substack. Okay, if you haven't subscribed to our Substack, do that, because that is where I am publishing all the good Next Curve stuff. And so remember, subscribe for the tech and industry insights that matter, and reach out to Peter, the true thought leader of our time. Right, Peter?
That's something to live up to. Thank you very much, Leonard. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.